All right, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of my betting podcast. If you don't know, if you didn't catch the last episode, I focus on Premier League and MLS bets. I write articles for online sports betting and my top sports books. I've been doing soccer betting for a while now. You can follow me on X at Will Chase Bets. I post all my picks there as well. You can see my record there. I've been having a really good summer, um, but last week was not so good. So hopefully we're gonna catch up again. Just kind of a bad Premier League, kind of a crazy week last week, with the Arsenal game ending up with 6 goals and just some crazy stuff all across the board. But MLS was fine, so hopefully we can have a bounce back week here. I'm taking a little bit of a shift this year or this week because of that. Something that I'm going to talk about a lot throughout this episode is variance. Especially like this midweek, for example, I had a bet on Austin under half a team total, which for those of you who watched that game, you would see that Austin scored off of a kind of a crazy. I think it had a 5% chance of going in. They scored that, and then they kind of sat back the rest of the game. So that was pretty frustrating to see a plus 220 bet that I think hits a lot more often than not. Ended up missing there. So my bets this week are going to be uh, a little bit tailored towards kind of curtailing that variance. So I'm just going to get right into this first one. This is the first game of the schedule for the Premier League this Saturday. This is a 7:30 a.m. start Eastern, so make sure you get your bets in tonight, or if you're going to wake up early tomorrow. I went with Crystal Palace +1, so this is the Asian handicap. I went for a full unit here, but this is kind of a difference from the way I really like to bet from a return on investment perspective is to kind of go big with those money lines and those draw no bets. I think that's really where the value is. And I'll kind of explain that the reason why I think that's the case is because draws are not so frequent in the regular season or the domestic season of soccer. Draws are particularly valuable from a betting perspective in tournament style settings like the Euros and Copa, which is how I made a good amount of money this summer betting draws. But in the domestic season, they're really pushing for those 3 points. That's what's going to help them place high on the table. So uh, any sort of bet where you're backing a draw in some way, I think you are reducing your ROI a little bit, which unfortunately is the case with this bet. But there's kind of a balance that you have to strike because um, you don't want to be constantly taking these big underdog plays. Maybe they miss just slightly, and you're kind of opening your bankroll up for a lot of variance. So when you can kind of make the line a little bit more even, like this case, you're going to be hitting a little bit more often, and it's going to allow you to increase your capital overall. So a return on capital is going to be a little bit better. So I am going to try to make a shift towards that because I bet, uh, like this episode, for example, I had 10 bets for you guys. Um, but that's just 10 bets for this weekend. So I don't bet super frequently, which means that uh, my bankroll is heavily skewed in the variance perspective, and I want to try to limit that a bit. But anyways, for this specific bet, I really like this spot for Crystal Palace. Liverpool played this midweek. They played Bologna. They won that game, but that was just a couple days ago. I think, at least from this Saturday. And Crystal Palace has, they haven't won a game this season, but they've had some really good performances. They drew Man United, they drew Chelsea. Uh, they kept both those teams to under one goal for Chelsea, and it was 0 goals for Manchester United. I think this is a good team. I wouldn't be too concerned. I know a lot of people are throwing around the R word, the relegation for Crystal Palace, but I don't think that's going to be the case for them. I think they're a good team. They've just had some stretch of kind of poor luck, and they've shown themselves to be pretty good defensively. A little bit underwhelming offensively, considering the amount of stars they have. They brought in Ishmael Assar, and of course they have Eze up top too. So would like to see a little bit more scoring from them, but I think we'll get that in this game. I think we'll see at least one goal here from the home team, and Palace should be able to keep this within a goal. Something that I talked about in my article this week, which you could check out on online sports betting, is that Liverpool looks a little bit different under Arne Slot as compared to when they had Jurgen Klopp at the helm. Klopp is kind of like they call it heavy metal football or heavy metal soccer. He kind of plays in a very aggressive way, which Slot does have very aggressive pressing tactics. So they are similar in that way, but Slot is much more conservative in the way he builds up his attacks, whereas Klopp loves to take advantage of counterattacks and things like that. So Liverpool kind of became known as this really high flying, high scoring team, and the totals are reflecting that. But this season is different under Slot, and I think you're going to see lower totals eventually. So I think this is going to be a lower scoring game than most people expect, and I like the value on Palace at +1. I think I have them. Let me just pull this up real quick. I have Crystal Palace at +113 on the money line with a spread of just 0.25, 0.25. So yeah, I think there's a lot of value on Crystal Palace here. Liverpool they should be favorites on the road, but a line of +1 is really good. And I also have a system on Crystal Palace that's based on rest. So I think they're going to be able to keep this one close here. I like the value on +1, and that's a full unit play just to start things off. And then moving on, we have I messed it up already. I'm trying to get these nice transitions going. Here we go. This is a half unit play with Brentford and Wolves. Brentford kind of let me down. I went big on their team total last week. They were able to score just one against West Ham, which was pretty surprising. I didn't get a chance to watch that game. I was pretty busy last week. Um, but I think their expected goals show that they deserve to score more than one goal, and this Wolves side is a lot worse than they were last year. Their defense is a lot worse. They actually probably do need to be worried about relegation. Um, and I think between Brentford and Wolves, Brentford at home, they should be able to do pretty well. They should be able to score. Uh, my projections have this total at -187 for the over 2.5, and I still think we're gonna get a little bit of a regression to the mean in Brentford's favor, I think here. So I think there's value on the over, especially considering that both these teams did not play midweek, so they should be well rested. Um, so I'm just going to go with a half unit here at -131. I think that line is still pretty available. And then that brings us to Arsenal and Southampton. This is a very lopsided game if you take a look at the money lines. Arsenal, I believe, I've seen some -900s on certain markets for Arsenal to win this game. I think that's a little bit out there because I do think this is going to be a low scoring game. I think that, Southampton is probably unlikely to score, but Arsenal's attack has been a little bit subdued. I think that some of that has been because they've taken on some red cards, but I think under Arteta they're looking to really consolidate and keep games almost kind of like a Mourinho style of tactical play, where once they grab a lead, they're gonna sit back and trust their defense. They have, I would say, the best defense in the world. So under 3.5 goals here, to have this at around pick'em, I got it at -110. I think the line did move a little bit, but to have this as a pick'em when you have a home team who's very likely to win this game and Southampton is unlikely to score, then that means that you're kind of backing Arsenal to win in some kind of a blowout, which I don't think they're going to blow them out of the water. I mean, it'll look that way, but I don't think they're going to be able to put those numbers up. So, especially considering that they played this midweek in European competition, so I think they won't be they'll be a little bit fatigued. So a total of 3.5, I think that's a bit high. The total was three against, well, I think it was 3.25 against Leicester, and um, Leicester is a much better offensive team as we saw. So I think 3.5, I think this is too high. So half a unit play here. And for our third Premier League bet, I'm going back to well with the Toffees here. I like Everton at this spot. As you can see, I got a line of plus 146, but I think it's around plus 125 now. I'm still fine with that. I think that Everton is the clear side here. Um, Past couple games, they've looked a lot better than they did in the first three. And if you really look back at the first three, a lot of craziness happened at the end of those games. Everton looked like they were going to win a couple of those, especially that one against Aston Villa. I think they're up 2-0 or something like that. So um, they've kind of proven that they're not a team that I think you should be too worried about finishing at the bottom of the table. I think that their manager he's going to get them right back to where they want to be. I think they could still make a push for top 10. And I think at home when you're a big underdog, or not a big underdog, but at plus 146, you're talking about Newcastle winning this game at around a 60% clip. I think that's too high. I think Everton should be close to being the favorite. I think I have this. Yeah, I have them at minus 101 on the draw no bet, so that's why I'm going with a half a unit here. Not massive edge, but I do think there's value. I have a rest system here in play because Newcastle played this midweek, so Everton should have some value. I have another system on them as well, so um, they should be able to score here. And I think Newcastle on the road definitely not as strong as they are at St. James Park, so um, they're kind of a clear side here. They should be able to at least get a draw at home. And then we're over on to Sunday. I think this is the Sunday morning slate here with Nottingham Forest and against Chelsea. They're traveling to Chelsea. Um, this is a similar bet to the Crystal Palace one that I started off this episode with. Nottingham Forest is a side that I'm pretty high on, similar to Crystal Palace. This one is on the road. Um, but Nottingham Forest has had success on the road against Chelsea in the past few games, which Crystal Palace did as well, actually, against Anfield, which is something I didn't mention there. But yeah, both of these sides have proven that they can win or even just earn a result their past couple games against these top sides. And Chelsea is probably kind of peaking from a market value perspective. They've scored a ton of goals their past couple games. But they've been playing competition like I think it was West Ham they played, and I don't remember who it was before that, but it was someone I remember being kind of they didn't really have a strong low block, and Nottingham Forest actually has a really elite back line that when they sit in their low defensive block, it's really hard to score goals against them. We saw that when they visited Anfield and they won that game 1-0. I think this is going to be hard for Chelsea to break down. They're kind of built like a counter-attacking team, and when they're going to face a side like Nottingham Forest, I think it's going to be tricky for them. I was able to get plus one at plus 118, um, but really anything at even money is good here on the plus one for Nottingham Forest. I think that Chelsea playing Gent, that was just on Thursday, or yeah, Thursday. So they're going to have just 2 days rest going into Sunday's match. Um, I think Nottingham Forest is going to have a clear rest advantage here. I think they're going to be able to sit back, maybe get something going on a transition play or a counterattack. But plus one, they should definitely be able to keep this a close game. I actually had this somewhat projected similar to the market. I think I had Nottingham Forest at plus 440 something, so I think it was at plus 550. So there was a slight amount of value, and I wanted to go with the plus one as I've been saying before, just to reduce the amount of variance that I've been facing and trying to get things a little bit more towards near 40-50% hit rate. which, when you're having big plus money plays, that's gonna be some great capital return in the long run. So yeah, this is a full unit play. And then uh, and then I have Aston Villa here against Manchester United. This is also a full unit play. Manchester United, rumors are swirling around Eric Ten Hag and his job security. This is something that's been happening for the last year and a half, really, with Ten Hag. I think that I really actually think he's safe. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. They've built their whole staff around him. They seem to kind of buy into his style over the off season. Maybe winning the FA Cup saved him, but they don't really have anywhere else to go, which can kind of demoralize a team like Manchester United, who have all these stars who are anticipating wanting to play, guys like Anthony and you know United's defense has been really bad. They've been bad on the road. They played Porto this midweek. That was a crazy game. They allowed 3 goals. Aston Villa is really a top four side pushing for a European spot, whereas I think United are going to be scraping for the top half of the table again. So when you have minus 0.25 here, that's the Asian handicap. That's when you're going to split your bet on half of it is going to be drawn a bet, half is going to be money line, and it's going to be at the same odds. So even money for Aston Villa to essentially win this game, or get half your money back in the event of a draw. I think that's really good. I have this at minus 152 projected for Aston Villa to win, and I have some systems on them as well. Well, it's actually a fading system on Manchester United, where they're 16 and 146 teams that I think give up at least 2 or more goals coming off a road loss or something. Can't quite remember. I should have my other notebook out so I can explain some of my systems. But yeah, Manchester United is going to be on those 2 days rest, playing Porto that they visited. Aston Villa is going to be on 3 days rest, but they I think they stayed at home in Birmingham, so that's going to give them a little bit of a rest advantage. Um, let's see, 16. Yeah, road dogs off a 2 goal loss or more. So that's the system. Um, I saw some sharps on this play too, so I like Aston Villa for a full unit here on the Sunday game. That's my last Premier League bet, and then we move on to this is going to be a rare opportunity for um, you to buy low on Inter Miami. Miami is a team that I would love to fade. I fade them a lot. I think that their stock in the market is way too high. Um, but this is kind of a crazy number for clearly the best team in the league against Toronto, who I think are very overrated. I know they're making the playoff push. They're still kind of in it, and in this situation, I understand why the books are making them underdogs into Miami, because of they just clinched the Supporters Shield. They might not have that much to play for anymore. They might rest all their guys, and they're on the road, which in MLS, the home team has a little bit more of an advantage compared to other soccer leagues. So I get why this is the case. I don't think this is a trap line, as you would call it, but I think the Inter Miami are just a way better team, even without like Messi and Suarez and Alba. Um, so at plus 116, this is kind of something I have to take a stab on. Let's check out my projections. I believe I had them as favorites here. Yeah, I had them at plus 107, which of course I want to factor in a little bit, that they're probably going to be resting those guys that I mentioned, but um, this is kind of a spot that you just want to fade the narrative here and go with Miami. Um, this is also a 4 p.m. game on a Saturday, so I'm not sure how that's going to affect Toronto, who are just coming off of a game on Wednesday. Um, we saw Miami beat Toronto 3-1 and then 4-0 in their last two games. Uh, those were in Miami, but in both of those games, they also, for the most part, did not play Messi, Suarez, Alba, Busquets, those guys. I think one of them Messi started, but he ended up exiting early in the first half, and they hadn't even scored yet. And then Miami ended up scoring 4 goals and winning 4-0 without him. So I think Miami's like clearly the better team. They have their number, even without all their star players. They should probably be. This should be, at worst a pick 'em. So I like the value on Miami here, John a bet. And then we move on to, oh yes, so Columbus and Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a side that I back to win the MLS Cup. Their expected goals statistics are really good for an away team. They're probably the best road team in the country, which comes as a surprise for a team that's kind of teetering on the playoffs. I think they've had some really unlucky results. Their stats say that they're way better than Toronto or DC United, who they're fighting for. So I think they're going to be able to make the playoffs. And for Columbus, they're coming off of that loss to Inter Miami on Wednesday that clinched the Supporters Shield for Miami, and that was Columbus's first loss at home in a while. Um, so there's a case to be made here that Columbus is kind of facing a potential letdown spot or a hangover spot. And when you're getting Philadelphia at a big number, who should be able to score on the road here, I think this is a good value play. So I went with a full unit um, on the double chance at plus 117 for what I want to give out. I actually got an earlier number. I bet this early and got, I think, plus 310 on the Drano bet for Philadelphia. I was able to get a little bit down on that before the line moved. Um, so I kind of have a split bet there, but I think this is a spot where Philadelphia should be able to keep this one close. I think they should be able to earn a result, especially considering that Columbus doesn't have much to play for anymore. Now that Miami won the Supporters Shield, they have I believe it's a 91% chance to earn the number two spot in the East. So, uh, I don't know if they really have much motivation here to win or even earn a result. Especially when you consider that they might want to rest some guys going into a really long MLS Cup playoff season, including that best of three series in the first round. So I think when you have a side that has proven that they're really, really good on the road and they can score on the road, I had Philadelphia as slight favorites here, which I think the projections are a little bit extreme there. Just using context, I think Columbus has been really strong at home. But I get why the numbers are pointing us in that direction. I think that Philadelphia are really underrated. So hopefully they make the playoffs, make some noise. But at least in this spot, I want to take advantage and go with Philadelphia to earn the result here on the road. And now we arrive in New England. This is my hometown team, but unfortunately, we've been really awful. Caleb Porter has probably earned himself a long vacation. I don't think he's going to get brought back after this season. They've been really bad at home, which is surprising considering they were one of the best home teams last year. Um, if you look at their expected goal statistics throughout this home season, they haven't uh, accrued more than 1.5 expected goals all year, except for their very first game against Toronto. And I think they had 1.8. So for most of their games, they've earned less than one expected goal at home, which is pretty crazy. It shows that they're just really, really, really bad offensively. The real only their silver lining has been Bobby Wood. He's kind of come out of nowhere at the comeback uh, last half of the season and scored some goals for them. But other than that, I mean, this has been a really, really pathetic showing from the Revolution. And DC United are coming off a really crazy game against Nashville. They were on the road. They were down 3-2, stoppage time. They scored 2 goals. They win the game 4-3. They're right in the middle of a playoff push. Benteke seems like he's going to win the top goal scorer, the Golden Boot this season. They seem to be firing all cylinders. I think that's back-to-back wins for them. So they're going to go on the road here, and I think they're going to fancy themselves as favorites. So I'm pretty surprised that this line is this generous to New England. It's kind of a line that I would expect maybe halfway through the season, when we still weren't quite sure if New England was really that bad, but it seems like now that it's proof. New England is terrible, and DC United, they're going to be right in that playoff bubble. So when you're getting a draw no bet line at plus 125, I think this is a really good spot for DC United. This is a strong full unit play for me. Um, I'll just pull up my projections for you again. I have DC at plus 119 on the money line, which now I think New England is plus 125, so DC is plus 200 on the money line. So that's a considerable amount of value there. I was debating going with New England team total under 1.5 because of what I mentioned before, but I think DC United's offensive production has looked really good, and I like the plus money that we're getting here. I think that there's a good chance that New England might not even score. But if they do, DC United's going to score at least one, I think. So we're looking at maybe a 2-1, 3-1 win, something like that, or even a 1-0 win. Um, I think the chance that they lose this game outright is very low. So when you get a draw no bet, you're eliminating the draw from the equation, and we're just thinking about who's more likely to win this game, DC or New England. And at this line, you definitely have to bet DC United here. And that's 3 MLS bets so far, and this is just my last play. I wish I had more bets this weekend. I'm pretty excited for this weekend. I think this is a fun time for MLS fans. You've got a lot on the line, a lot of playoff spots in the picture. The Western Conference, they're still pushing for spots for the number one seed there with LA Galaxy and LAFC. So I wish I had more spots, but when I did all my projections and I did my systems, uh, the market seems pretty well aligned. So I'm not sure if that's a case of maybe more volume, allowing for more information for the sports books, being able to kind of create some sharper lines. I'm not sure exactly what it is. Maybe it's just a bit of a coincidence, but yeah, I was only able to come up with 4 bets this weekend. I'm not going to force anything. We got to be smart and make sure that we're taking value spots. So my last play here deviates from what I took last week with New York City. Um, I will admit that was a bad bet, taking New York City under half the team total. It was really big juice, but I think I leaned a little bit too much into the past results for New York City on the road against Red Bulls. They hadn't scored like in 4 of their last 5 meetings there, but you always want to be aware that regression can be coming, and you don't want to think too much into those sorts of narratives. So I think I did that a little bit too much. And New York City, in fairness, they have kind of turned a corner. They were struggling up until that point. They scored a bunch of goals that night, and they were able to score, I think, 3 this weekend or this midweek. So um, I have the over 2.5 goals. Well, I'll just say over 3.5 at plus 121. Um, and the over 2.5 I have at minus 203. So if you're taking a look at this and you're looking at all your betting markets and you're seeing that the line is 2.5, and you're saying why is Will betting over 3.5? Well, there were a couple books I found had the 3.5 alternate total uh, in around the plus 170 range. I got plus 175 at Ballybet, and FanDuel had plus 172. And those numbers are interestingly off from what you would see across the board. when you have a line of minus 150, minus 155 for over 2.5, you're typically going to see the over 3.5 at around plus 150, plus 155. So to see plus 175, this is almost just like a plus EV bet, or this is just a good line. This is like a line that's off by 20 cents on its own, let alone the fact that we're getting some value here. So I wanted to kind of take a risk and go with the over 3.5 because not only is it a good line, but we've seen New York City score in bunches, and Nashville is coming off that game that I mentioned. They scored 3 goals and then they ended up allowing four and losing that game. So a 7 goal game, and then New York City just had 5 goals on their own, and then 3 goals this midweek. This is kind of a spot where I think that you could almost ladder this kind of total. Um, Go with a little bit on 4.5, 5.5, but I'm just going to stick with a half unit on over 3.5 goals because I am showing just a little bit of value. Um, and hopefully we'll get some variance this way this time. So yeah, that does it for this weekend. Just 10 plays, 6 for Premier League, 4 for MLS. But quite a few full unit plays here. So hoping we get a little turnaround on the Premier League side. Still profitable in MLS this season, just down a unit on Premier League. So um, I think my projections are going to get even more accurate as the season goes along because I'm going to be able to feel more comfortable implementing more and more of this season's data in the Premier League as we get into like 7, 8 match days. That's when I'm going to start trying to use a little bit more of this season's data, and I think that will make it uh, even more accurate, considering all the new managerial changes and things like that. So looking forward to this season. Hopefully, we get kind of a nice profitable this weekend, and we can parlay that into some success after the international break. So, unfortunately, this will probably be my last podcast for the next couple weeks because I think there's just one MLS game next week during the international break, and then there's going to be nothing for club soccer in Europe for 2 weeks. So I'll take a look at some of the international markets, see if there's any value there, and tweet that out. But I'm a little bit more careful about those friendlies or those Nations League matches because um, I just don't have as much data at my disposal. So that'll do it for this weekend. And yeah, you can reach out to me. We'll chase bets. I'm gonna put everything on the description below, so check that out. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Tell your friends, and thanks for listening.